Here's something most people never learned in school. For most of human history, we were not alone. Not metaphorically, literally. There were other humans, different species, walking the same earth, hunting the same animals, surviving the same ice ages at the exact same time as us. Bigger brains in some cases, stronger bodies in most cases. And yet, today, there's only one human species left. Us. So what were these other humans actually like? What did their daily lives look like? And most importantly, what actually happened to them? Let's find out. Let's meet the family, so to speak. Neanderthals, the most famous of the group, lived across Europe and parts of Asia, built strong and stocky for cold climates. Denisovans, a mysterious relative known mostly from a few fragments of bone and DNA, lived across Asia, and we're still piecing together what they even looked like. Homo floresiensis, nicknamed the Hobbits, lived on a small Indonesian island and stood barely over 3 feet tall. And Homo erectus, the longest surviving human species in history, lasted for nearly 2 million years before disappearing. At one point, scientists estimate at least 4 or 5 different human species were alive on Earth simultaneously, around the same time our own species, Homo sapiens, was spreading out of Africa. Picture that for a second. Not one version of human, but several, coexisting, each shaped differently by their environment. So how did they actually live day to day? Here's where it gets genuinely surprising. Neanderthals weren't the dumb, hunched-over cavemen from old cartoons. They hunted large, dangerous animals like mammoths and bison using close-range spears, requiring serious coordination and courage. They controlled fire, wore simple clothing made from animal hides, and lived in small, tight-knit family groups, usually numbering in the dozens. Evidence shows they cared for their sick and injured. Skeletons have been found with healed fractures, meaning someone kept them alive long enough to recover. Some sites even show possible burial practices, suggesting an emotional response to death, not just abandonment. Compare that to modern daily life. Hunting for food today means opening a delivery app, not chasing a mammoth with a wooden spear. But strip away the technology, and the core structure looks familiar. Families, cooperation, caring for the vulnerable, and a shared fire at the center of it all. So if they were this capable, how different were they from us, really? Here's a fact that surprises almost everyone. Neanderthal brains were, on average, slightly larger than ours. So, were they smarter? Not necessarily. Brain size alone doesn't determine intelligence, and their brain structure was organized somewhat differently, with more area dedicated to vision and body control, and possibly less to the kind of complex social networking our species specialized in. There's solid evidence they used tools, controlled fire, and very likely had some form of language. Some researchers believe cave art, once attributed only to early Homo sapiens, may have actually been made by Neanderthals as well. So here's the honest, current scientific answer. They weren't lesser humans. They were different humans, adapted brilliantly to their own environment, just not in exactly the same direction evolution took us. Which makes the next question even more important. If they were this capable, why aren't they still here? Here's the honest answer. Scientists don't have one single clean explanation. They have several overlapping theories, and probably all of them played a role. Climate change was one major pressure. Ice age fluctuations repeatedly reshaped available food and habitat, and smaller, more spread out Neanderthal populations may have struggled to adapt as quickly as larger, more connected Homo sapiens groups. Direct competition was likely another factor. As Homo sapiens expanded into the same territories, competition for resources like game animals and shelter would have intensified, and our larger, more interconnected social networks may have simply provided an advantage over time. And then there's the theory that changes everything: interbreeding. Homo sapiens and Neanderthals didn't just compete, they had children together. Which means, in a very real sense, Neanderthals didn't fully disappear. They were partially absorbed into us.
Here's the detail that changes the entire story. If your ancestry traces outside of Africa, you likely carry somewhere between 1 and 2% Neanderthal DNA in your genome, right now, today. Some of that DNA has even been linked to modern traits, certain immune responses, skin and hair characteristics, even how some people's bodies process specific medications. So Neanderthals didn't vanish the way dinosaurs did. They ended as a separate species, but a small, real piece of them continued forward, quietly folded into us, generation after generation, for tens of thousands of years. In a strange way, you could argue they never fully left at all.
So, one last question worth sitting with. What if they hadn't disappeared? What if Neanderthals, Denisovans, or Homo floresiensis were still around today, living alongside us, going to the same schools, working the same jobs? It's not entirely wild speculation. For the vast majority of human history, sharing the planet with other human species wasn't the exception. It was normal. We're actually the unusual case, the one human species that ended up completely alone. 400,000 years of Neanderthal history, tens of thousands of years of Denisovans, nearly 2 million years of Homo erectus, all eventually folding into a single surviving branch: us. Not because we were destined to be the only ones, just because that's how this particular story happened to play out. And if this journey into humanity's lost relatives got you curious about what we uncover next, there's a simple way to come along. Just hit subscribe so you don't miss it.